I was standing in the doorway of my own bedroom, watching my son Michael go through my filing cabinet. He didn't hear me. The carpet muffled my footsteps, and he was too focused on whatever he was looking for. His fingers moving quickly through the folders, pulling out papers, photographing them with his phone. Click, click, click. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. This was my house, my filing cabinet, my private documents, and my own son was going through them like a thief in the night. Except it wasn't night. It was 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, and he thought I was at my physical therapy appointment. I'd come home early. The therapist had canceled. Minor emergency with another patient. I'd driven back, parked in the garage, come in through the kitchen door, and now I was watching my 42-year-old son photograph my bank statements, my investment records, my insurance policies. Maybe I should have said something right then. Maybe I should have walked in and demanded to know what he was doing. But something stopped me. A cold, careful instinct I developed over 30 years as a mechanical engineer. When something doesn't work right, you don't just react. You observe. You gather data. You figure out the pattern before you try to fix it. So I stepped back, quietly, into the hallway, made my way downstairs, left through the front door this time, got back in my car, and drove to the coffee shop down the street. Sat there for exactly 1 hour and 15 minutes. Then I drove home again, this time making sure to pull into the driveway normally, close the car door firmly, let my keys jingle as I walked to the front door. "Dad, you're back!" Michael appeared in the living room, all smiles, casual as anything. "How was therapy?" "Good," I said, studying his face. "How was your afternoon?" "Oh, you know. Just working from home, catching up on some emails." He was good. I had to give him that. Not a flicker of guilt, not a trace of nervousness. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I'd never have known. "My name is Robert Harrison. I'm 65 years old. I spent 30 years designing mechanical systems for Boeing before I retired 3 years ago. I've built things that fly at 35,000 feet, carrying hundreds of people who trust that every bolt, every seal, every system will work exactly as designed. I know how to identify a point of failure. I know how to trace a problem back to its source. And I was looking at a problem. Let me back up. 6 months ago, I had a car accident. Nothing major. A teenager ran a red light, T-boned my Camry on the passenger side. I was fine. Mostly. Bruised ribs, whiplash, a concussion that had me seeing double for a week. The kid's insurance covered everything, but it shook me up. First time I'd really felt my age, you know? Sitting in that hospital bed, realizing that things that wouldn't have fazed me at 40 were now serious concerns at 65. Michael and his wife Jennifer came to visit me in the hospital. They were concerned, attentive. Jennifer brought homemade soup. Michael insisted on driving me home when I was discharged. They suggested maybe I shouldn't be living alone anymore. Not after the accident. What if something happened and there was no one there to help? I told them I was fine. I'd lived alone for 5 years, since my wife Sarah died. I liked my independence, my routine, my quiet house with my workshop in the garage and my garden out back. But they kept at it. Gentle at first. What about meals? What about taking medications on schedule? What about remembering appointments? The concussion had affected my short-term memory for a few weeks. I'd missed a dentist appointment, forgotten to pick up a prescription once. Normal stuff when you're recovering from a head injury. To them, it was evidence. Signs of decline. Early dementia, maybe. "Dad, we're just worried about you." Jennifer would put her hand on my arm, her voice soft with concern. "We want to make sure you're safe." 2 months after the accident, they moved in. "Just temporarily," Michael said. "Just until you're fully recovered." They took over the guest room, started cooking dinner every night, doing my laundry, managing my medications, being helpful, and slowly, quietly, things started to change. My mail started disappearing, just occasionally at first, then more regularly. When I asked about it, Michael said he'd been sorting it for me, throwing away junk mail. "You don't need to worry about all that stuff, Dad. I'm handling it." but I hadn't asked him to handle it. My phone calls started being screened. Jennifer would answer my cell phone if I left it on the kitchen counter. Oh, that was just a spam call, Robert. Nothing important. How did she know it wasn't important if she wasn't me? And then there were the conversations that would stop when I walked into a room. The quick glances between them. The laptop that would be closed suddenly when I came downstairs. For a while, I told myself I was being paranoid. This was my son, my daughter-in-law. They were helping me. I should be grateful. But 30 years of engineering had taught me to trust my instruments. And my instruments were telling me something was wrong. The filing cabinet was the proof. That night, after dinner, after Michael and Jennifer had gone upstairs to their room, I went into my study and checked the cabinet. Everything looked normal. The folders were all there, in the same order I always kept them. But I knew. I'd seen those papers being photographed. I sat at my desk for a long time, thinking, processing. Like any good problem, I needed to break this down into components. What did I know? What did I suspect? What did I need to find out? I knew. Michael had been photographing my financial documents. I suspected. There was a reason, a plan, something they were working toward. I needed to find out what that plan was and how far it had gone. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept thinking about Sarah, about what she would say if she could see this. She'd always been the emotional one, the one who understood people while I understood machines. But she'd taught me something important. People, like machines, operate on logic. Even when they do bad things, there's usually a rational reason, a motivation, a point of failure that led them there. What was Michael's motivation? The next morning, I started my own investigation. Quietly, carefully, the way you debug a complex system, checking one component at a time. I started with my bank statements, logged into my account online when I was alone in the house, checked the transactions for the past 6 months. Everything looked normal at first. My pension deposits, my investment dividends, the usual bills and expenses. But then I noticed something. Small withdrawals. $50 here, $75 there. Never enough to be obvious, but frequent. Twice a week sometimes. Always in cash. Always from an ATM. I never used. Across town near Michael and Jennifer's old apartment. My ATM card was in my wallet. In my bedroom, where I left it every night. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. This wasn't paranoia. This was real. I kept digging. Checked my credit cards. Found similar patterns. Small charges at stores I'd never been to. Restaurants I'd never eaten at. Nothing huge. Nothing that would trigger a fraud alert. Just a slow, steady bleed of my money. How long had this been going on? I scrolled back further. 3 months. 4. 5. It had started about a month after they moved in. I thought about confronting them. Just laying it all out. Why are you stealing from me? But something told me there was more. The photographed documents weren't about $50 ATM withdrawals. Those were, what? Pocket money? Walking around cash? No. The documents suggested something bigger. I needed more information. Over the next week, I played along, acted normal, accepted their help with medications, let Jennifer cook dinner, watched TV with Michael in the evenings. All the while, I was observing, gathering data, and I started noticing other things. The way Jennifer would talk to me slowly, carefully, like I was a child. Robert, do you remember what we talked about yesterday? Even when we hadn't talked about anything. The way Michael would exchange looks with her when I'd forget something minor. A name, a date, normal stuff. But they'd turn it into something significant. Dad, that's the 3rd time this week you've forgotten. They were building a narrative. Robert's declining. Robert's not capable. Robert needs more help than we can provide at home. One afternoon, when they thought I was napping, I heard them on the phone in the kitchen. I was in my study, door open just a crack, and their voices carried. I know, Mom, but we have to wait for the right moment. That was Michael. The doctor's appointment is next week. If he does poorly on the cognitive test, a pause. No, We're not forcing anything. We're just documenting. For when we need to make decisions. Decisions. About what? About me? I stayed very still, listening. The house alone is worth over 600,000, Jennifer's voice now. And the retirement accounts, the investments, Mom, if we can get power of attorney, we can make sure everything's protected before he does something confused. Before he what? Michael again. Look, I love my dad, but he's not getting better. He's getting worse. And we need to be realistic. I wasn't getting worse. I'd recovered from the concussion months ago. My memory was fine. My thinking was clear. Maybe clearer than it had been in years, sharpened by adrenaline and suspicion. But they were building a case that I was incompetent. And if they could prove that, legally, they could take control. Power of attorney. That's what the documents were about. I spent that night doing research. About elder abuse. About financial exploitation. About how easily an aging parent could be declared incompetent. How quickly control could be transferred to an adult child with the right documentation, the right testimony. I thought about Sarah again. About how we'd raised Michael. We'd given him everything. Put him through college. Helped with his wedding. Loaned him money when he'd lost his job 3 years ago. $20,000. Money he'd never paid back. But I'd never pushed. He was my son. You help your kids. Was that the problem? Had we helped too much? Made it too easy? Or was this something else? Something darker? A fundamental failure in his character that we'd missed? I needed to know the extent of it. How far this went. What exactly they were planning. So I set a trap. The next day, at breakfast, I made a show of being confused. What day is it? I asked, looking around vaguely. Tuesday? It's Thursday, Dad. Michael's eyes lit up. Just a fraction. Just enough. Thursday. Right. Thursday. I shook my head like I was trying to clear it. I have that doctor's appointment today, don't I? Tomorrow, Dad. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Tomorrow. I repeated it slowly. I could have sworn I saw Jennifer pull out her phone, making a note. Probably. More documentation. Over the next few days, I gave them more. Forgot where I'd put my keys. Asked what we'd had for dinner the night before. Mixed up my medications one morning. Very deliberately. Very carefully in a way they'd notice. And they ate it up. Every confused moment. Every senior moment. They were building their case. And I was helping them. Because while they were building their case against me, I was building mine against them. I'd set up a security camera in my study. Small thing. Ordered it online. Had it delivered to a P.O. box I'd opened without telling them. Mounted it behind a stack of books on my shelf. Aimed right at the filing cabinet. And I caught them. Multiple times. Michael going through my files. Jennifer photographing documents. At one point, I caught them on camera discussing which assisted living facility they should put me in. Evergreen Manor is nice, Jennifer said, looking at a brochure. And it's only 45 minutes away. We could visit on weekends. We need to make sure they take Medicaid, Michael said. Once his money runs out, it won't run out for years. Not with the house sale. Still, better to plan ahead. They were spending my money in their heads, dividing up my assets, picking out my prison. The doctor's appointment was the key, I realized. They'd scheduled it with a new physician. Not Dr. Morrison, who'd been my doctor for 15 years. A younger doctor. Someone who didn't know my history. Someone who'd rely on what my concerned family members told him about my declining condition. I showed up to that appointment ready. Michael and Jennifer came with me, of course. For support, they said. They sat in the waiting room while I went in. Dr. Chen was young, professional, friendly. He asked me about my health, my medications, my daily activities. Then he started the cognitive test. Simple stuff. What day is it? Who's the president? Count backwards from 100 by sevens. I aced it. Every question. Perfect score. Dr. Chen smiled. Mr. Harrison, your cognitive function is excellent. There's no sign of any impairment whatsoever. Really? I let surprise show in my voice. My son was worried. He said I've been very forgetful lately. Well, minor memory lapses are normal at any age, especially after a concussion. But based on this evaluation, I see no cause for concern. Your mind is sharp. When I came out to the waiting room, Michael and Jennifer were all expectant faces. How did it go, Dad? Good, I said. Doctor says I'm fine, sharp as ever. I watched their faces fall, just for a second. Then Michael recovered. That's great, Dad. That's really great. But I could see the calculation in his eyes, the setback, the plan that wasn't working out the way they'd expected. In the car on the way home, they were quiet, tense. I sat in the back seat, looking out the window, thinking about what came next. That evening, I heard them arguing in their room, voices raised, then hushed. I couldn't make out the words, but I could hear the frustration, the anger. I'd disrupted their timeline, but I hadn't stopped them. They'd just recalibrate, try another approach. I needed to end this. Cleanly, decisively. I called my lawyer, Mark Patterson. We'd gone to high school together, back in 1976. Played football together, been best man at each other's weddings. If there was anyone I could trust, it was Mark. I laid it all out for him. The stolen money, the photographed documents, the plans I'd overheard, the security camera footage. Mark's face got harder and harder as I talked. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Rob, he finally said, this is elder abuse. Financial exploitation. We could press charges. I don't want charges, I said. Not yet. I just want them out of my house, out of my life. And I want my money back. All of it? Every penny. Mark nodded. Let me draft some documents. We'll need to do this carefully, legally. Make sure everything's airtight. 3 days later, everything was ready. Mark came to my house at 9 a.m. on a Saturday morning. I'd told Michael and Jennifer we were having a meeting. About my estate planning, I said. Mark's helping me get some things in order. They'd lit up at that. Estate planning. That meant wills, inheritance, maybe power of attorney. We sat in my living room, me in my usual chair, Mark with his briefcase, Michael and Jennifer on the couch, trying to look appropriately concerned and helpful. Mark pulled out a folder. Before we discuss estate planning, he said, his voice professional and cold, we need to address some discrepancies in Robert's financial records. Michael's face went very still. Discrepancies? Unauthorized ATM withdrawals totaling approximately $8,000 over the past 5 months. Credit card charges for purchases Robert didn't make. And then there's the matter of photographed documents and discussions about power of attorney that Robert never authorized. Jennifer's face drained of color. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Mark pulled out a tablet, turned it to face them, started playing the security camera footage. There was Michael, clear as day, going through my filing cabinet. There was Jennifer, photographing my bank statements. You had cameras? Michael's voice was barely a whisper. I'm an engineer, I said quietly. I solve problems, and you two were a problem that needed solving. Mark continued. You have 2 choices. Choice 1. Robert presses charges for elder abuse and financial exploitation. You go through a criminal trial. You likely go to jail. Your names get dragged through every newspaper in Seattle. The room was dead silent. Choice 2. You return every penny you took. All $8,347. You sign a document relinquishing any claim to Robert's estate. You move out today, and Robert doesn't press charges. Dad, Michael started. Don't. I cut him off. My voice was steady, but inside something was breaking. Don't call me Dad right now. Don't make excuses. Don't explain. Just decide. Jennifer was crying, silent tears running down her face. We didn't mean for it to go this far. We needed the money. Michael's been out of work again. And we thought you'd never notice. You thought I was a confused old man you could rob blind. I finished for her. You thought I was weak, incompetent, an easy mark. That's not It's exactly that. I stood up, looked at my son, this man I'd raised, taught to ride a bike, sent to college, walked down the aisle at his wedding. I gave you everything, and you repaid me by trying to steal the rest. Michael couldn't meet my eyes. You have 2 hours, Mark said, standing. Pack your things, transfer the money, sign the documents, or I make a phone call to the police. They chose option 2. I watched them pack, watched them load their car, watched Jennifer cry in the driveway while Michael carried boxes. He tried to talk to me once, tried to apologize. I held up my hand. Save it. Just go. And they did. The house felt different after they left. Bigger, emptier, but cleaner somehow, like I'd scrubbed out something toxic. I thought I'd feel victorious, triumphant. I'd won, after all. I'd protected myself, outsmarted them, got justice. But mostly I just felt tired and sad. That evening, I sat in my workshop in the garage, my sanctuary, the place where I'd built things for 40 years. Birdhouses for Sarah's garden, a bookshelf for Michael's first apartment, a cradle for the grandchildren we'd hoped for but never got. My hands were steady as I picked up a piece of wood. Oak. Good, strong oak. I started planning a project, just something to keep my hands busy, my mind occupied. I thought about what Sarah would say. She'd be heartbroken about Michael, but she'd understand what I did. She always said I was too soft on him, too willing to help, too ready to excuse. Maybe she was right. My phone buzzed. A text from my daughter Allison. She lived in Portland with her husband and 2 kids. We talked every week, but she didn't know about any of this yet. Hey, Dad. Just checking in. How are you doing? I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, I'm okay, sweetheart. Just working on a project in the garage. How are the kids? Normal conversation. Normal life. Like nothing had happened. But something had happened. Something fundamental had shifted in my understanding of family, of trust, of what you owe your children and what they owe you. I'd spent my life building things that worked. Reliable systems, fail-safes and backups, check valves and pressure releases. Things you could trust to do exactly what they were designed to do. People aren't like that. People fail in ways you can't predict, can't engineer around, can't fix with the right tools and the right manual. The next morning I changed my will. Everything went to Allison now, and to a few charities Sarah and I had supported. Michael's name was removed entirely. I changed all my passwords, set up alerts on every financial account, installed cameras throughout the house, not because I thought Michael would come back, but because I'd learned a lesson about vulnerability, about the importance of protecting yourself, even from the people who are supposed to love you, especially from them. 3 weeks later, I got a letter, handwritten, from Michael. I almost threw it away without reading it, but curiosity won out. Dad, it started. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. What we did was wrong, unforgivable. I was desperate and stupid, and I convinced myself that we weren't really hurting you, that you wouldn't miss the money, that we deserved it somehow because of everything you'd given us before. I know how insane that sounds. I know there's no excuse. I just wanted you to know that I know what I lost. Not the inheritance, not the house, but you. I lost my father, and that's worth more than any amount of money. I'm sorry doesn't cover it, but I'm sorry anyway. Michael. I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. I didn't respond. Maybe someday I would. Maybe someday he'd earn that. But not today. Maybe not ever. I'm 65 years old. I spent my career building systems that keep people safe at 35,000 feet. I know about redundancy, about backup plans, about the difference between a warning sign and a catastrophic failure. My son's betrayal wasn't a warning sign. It was the failure itself. The moment when all the weak points, all the stress fractures, all the hidden flaws finally gave way. You can't fix that with better engineering. You can only contain the damage, prevent it from spreading, protect what's still intact. So that's what I did. Now I live alone again. by choice, in peace. I talk to Allison every week. I visit my grandkids in Portland once a month. I work in my garden. I build things in my workshop. I have coffee with Mark on Thursdays and play chess with my neighbor Harold on Tuesday evenings. I'm okay. More than okay, actually. I'm clear. I know exactly where I stand, who I can trust, what I'm worth. Not in money, though I've got that secured now, protected, safe, but in dignity, in self-respect, in the simple, hard-won knowledge that I can take care of myself, that I'm not confused, not incompetent, not a victim. I'm Robert Harrison. I'm 65 years old. I built my life with my own hands, and I'll be damned if I let anyone take it from me. Not my son. Not anyone. Some people think being old means being weak, being vulnerable, being easy prey. They're wrong. Being old means having experience, having wisdom, having the patience to watch and wait and gather data before you act. It means knowing that the strongest structures aren't the ones that never face stress. They're the ones that can withstand it, that can bend without breaking, that can lose everything except what matters most. I lost my son. That's true. But I kept myself. And in the end, that's the only thing I really needed to protect.